Ever wondered what really makes us human? When you get right down to it. Well, it's not just our DNA. It's about how that DNA is all packaged up. We're about to dive into the world of primate cytogenetics to solve a pretty big evolutionary mystery about where we came from. Let's jump right in.
Okay, so here's the central puzzle, the big question for today. Our closest living relatives, we're talking chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, they all have 48 chromosomes. But we humans, we only have 46. So what gives? Do we just, lose 2 entire chromosomes somewhere along the evolutionary road? Well, the real answer is way cooler than that.
All right, to solve this puzzle, we've got to look beyond just the simple genetic code. We have to look at how the whole instruction manual is put together, because some of the biggest, most dramatic stories in evolution are found right there.
Now get this. We share almost 99% of our DNA sequence with chimpanzees. 99%. And yet, just look at us. There are obviously some pretty profound differences. That number, that 99%, tells us that the simple string of letters in our genetic code doesn't tell the whole story, not by a long shot.
A great way to think about it is like this. You can have the exact same set of words, but if you rearrange the chapters of a book, maybe even fuse 2 chapters together, you end up with a completely different story. Our chromosomes, well, they're the chapters of our genetic book, and how they're structured is just as important as the words they carry.
So how do scientists actually peek inside and read these genetic chapters? Well, for that, we need to zoom in, like way, way in, and get familiar with the tools and the concepts that let us uncover this incredible evolutionary story. The field we're talking about is called cytogenetics, and it's basically the science of looking at the big picture structure of the genome. We're not just looking at genes, we're looking at the chromosomes themselves to understand everything from genetic diseases to how new species branch off from each other over millions of years.
So let's take that journey inward right now. We start with the organism, a primate, like us or a chimpanzee. Then we zoom in to one of the trillions of cells in its body. Inside that cell, we find the nucleus, sort of like the control center. And inside that nucleus, that's where we find our main characters for today, the chromosomes.
Now, the really important thing to get is that a chromosome isn't just a loose, tangled strand of DNA. No way. It's this incredibly organized, super tightly wound up package of DNA and proteins. It's all designed to keep that massive amount of information safe, accessible, and, most importantly, sorted correctly when a cell needs to divide.
And the most important time for chromosomes to get sorted perfectly is during a process called meiosis. This is not just any old cell division. You can think of it as an intricate and absolutely beautiful biological dance that makes sexual reproduction possible.
I just love this analogy. Okay, so imagine your genome is made of 2 decks of cards, one you inherited from your mother and one from your father. Meiosis is the process that expertly shuffles those 2 decks together to create a brand new, completely unique hand to pass on to your own kids. It's literally the engine of genetic diversity.
And this brilliant dance has some really critical moves. First, the chromosomes find their matching partner from the other parent. They line up perfectly, and then, this is the amazing part, they literally swap pieces of themselves. It's a process called crossover. This shuffling is what ensures that every single egg or sperm cell is totally genetically unique.
Now, for this whole dance to work, those chromosome pairs have to be held together perfectly. And that job belongs to this incredible piece of molecular machinery called the synaptonemal complex. The best way to picture it? It's like a biological zipper. It flawlessly zips the 2 chromosomes together so they can exchange information without making any catastrophic mistakes.
And trust me, the stakes here could not be higher. When this dance goes right, you get healthy, diverse offspring. But when it goes wrong, if those chromosomes can't pair up just right, it can lead to infertility, genetic disorders, or, and this is crucial for our story, over an evolutionary timescale, it can build a reproductive wall between 2 populations.
So you might be wondering, how do these chromosomes find their correct partners so well inside a crowded cell? Well, it turns out they get a lot of help. And that help comes from a surprising fact. The nucleus isn't a chaotic mess. It's actually a world of incredible order.
This is a total game changer of a concept. We used to think of the nucleus as a tangled bowl of genetic spaghetti, but we now know it's much, much more like a library. Every single chromosome has its own designated territory, its own specific spot where it likes to hang out.
This nuclear architecture is fundamentally important. It helps the cell control which genes get turned on or off. But for our story, the critical part is that it makes it so much easier for matching chromosomes to find each other when it's time for that meiotic dance to begin. The system is basically pre-sorted, which makes meiosis way more efficient and reliable.
Okay, so we've got our tools. We understand that chromosome structure matters, that meiosis is a high-stakes dance, and that the nucleus is like a highly organized library. So now, let's put all of those pieces together and finally solve our initial puzzle.
Let's look at the data again. All the other great apes, 48 chromosomes. Humans, 46. The numbers are crystal clear. We are the odd ones out. So where did our 2 missing chromosomes go? They didn't just disappear.
And here it is, the answer, the big aha moment. At some point in our lineage, after we split from our common ancestor with chimpanzees, 2 ancestral ape chromosomes fused together, end to end. They merged to form what we now call human chromosome 2. So you see, we didn't lose 2 chromosomes, we just have one very large chromosome where other apes have 2 smaller ones.
And this wasn't just some small edit. This was a massive structural change. An individual born with this fusion would have had trouble reproducing with the original population because their chromosomes wouldn't line up properly during that critical meiotic dance. This creates a reproductive barrier, and that's a key ingredient in the recipe for forming a brand new species.
So the story of our 46 chromosomes is really the story of a dramatic event that helped set our ancestors on a completely unique evolutionary path. It's written right there in our cells. It really makes you wonder, as our species continues to evolve, what kind of story will our chromosomes tell millions of years from now? It's just a fascinating look at how our ancient past is written into our very biology.